Good evening. Before I get into my little talk, I want to just say a word about Coach Brosley. I think the statute of limitations is up now, but we were always very excited when he proctored our Latin exams, because we would ask him what the answer and he'd give it to you. Don't tell Father Samiski. Thank you, Tom and Dave Roach, truly brothers from my other mother, Ma Roach. I'm grateful to both of you for this introduction and for the incredible gift of your friendship for all these years. Father Samiski, prep faculty, prep graduates and students, my friends and family, my brothers from the class of 1970, thanks to all of you for being here tonight to help me celebrate this wonderful honor. In 2012, the prep swim team community held a retirement party for the great Bruce Jaffe, who had coached swimming at prep for 45 years. He deservedly won every honor there is to win. Around that time, our terrific current coach, Rick Hutchinson, had compiled a list of top 10 times in each event since the inception of prep swimming. He was kind enough to post them at the restaurant where Bruce's party was being held. At that time, I was still hanging on to 10th place in the 100 fly. Rick must have clued in a couple of the young men who were still swimming for prep that I was at the party. They sought me out. I think mainly to see what the heck a swimmer from 1970 even looked like. They expressed admiration that my time had held up all those years. I told them that things were different then because they hadn't yet invented water. They kind of looked at each other. I noticed something in that interaction with those young prep men that I felt every time I meet a fellow prepster, regardless of age or how we meet. We have an instant connection, a bond really. Whenever I meet someone and we discover that we're both Fairfield prep grads, we both light up. It's because we share a set of values, not just a common educational background. Prep is a very special place made up of very special people. The lessons we learn here stay with us forever. We learn to become men for others. In my day, we learned to become young Christian gentlemen. I don't think you can be one and not the other. On nights like this, we hear people like me say that we're honored and humbled. I think the honored part speaks for itself, but why are we humbled? I believe it's because we know that we're all blessed by God with certain gifts. We all have them. These are blessings freely bestowed upon us. We're meant to steward these gifts, develop them, and use them in the service of others. But we never do that by ourselves. I have had an enormous amount of help. I'd want to take a moment to talk about and thank some of the people who provided me with that help. First, my mother, Doris, who's here tonight. Along with my wonderful sisters and their families, our family. My mom is the one who encouraged me to come here to prep in the first place. She also picked us up, drove us to practice and meets, and sat through those meets. If you've never had the pleasure of watching an age group meet or a high school championship meet in 90-degree temperatures and 200% humidity, you're not missing a thing. I also want to thank my wife Peggy for all she's done for me. She wasn't with me in high school days, but she did sit through a year of master swimming meet, which is essentially age group swimming for old people. What I just said about age group championship meets applies equally to master swim meets. The big difference is that in master swim meets, everybody's just a little more frightening in their Speedos. I apologize if I gave you a mental image you can't unsee. I had a little flashback myself. So I love you, Peggy. Thank you for being my best friend and going along with all my harebrained ideas over these years. My father, Fred, also known as Cigars back in the day, taught me about competing, commitment, and being a good teammate. He also taught me that you practice even when you don't feel like it. Once I called him from the Bridgeport Y when he was on the team there, I was around 12 years old. I told him I didn't feel good and asked him if he could come and get me. He said he would, and he did. When I got in the car, he asked me if I was sick. I said, no, I just don't feel like swimming today. He made it very clear that I don't feel like swimming today is not a reason to leave practice early. So back I went. No one is happier about this evening than my dad as he looks down upon these proceedings. He wouldn't have said much to me about this honor, but he would have stopped strangers on the street to fill them in. Dave Spino is a name probably few of you would know. He was the head coach of prep swimming my freshman year. Bruce Jaffe was his assistant. But the gift Dave gave me came when I was still in 8th grade, swimming at the Y. He was filling in one day for a regular coach, and he pulled me aside, and he asked me if I was working hard. I said, yeah, I think I am. And he said, well, I think you can work a lot harder. So I kind of mumbled to myself something like, yeah, so can you, buddy. But then I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a whirl, see if I like it. I didn't particularly care for the hard work part of it, but it began to pay off almost immediately. That 15-second interaction changed everything in my swimming trajectory. I dropped my time in the 100 butterfly by about 12 seconds in 1 year. And that's about 3/4 of the length of a pool in a 4-length race. I'm not claiming credit for putting in the hard work, and ability to work hard is also a gift from God, in my opinion. Besides, it wasn't my idea in the first place, it was Dave Spino's. That little suggestion from Dave is a great example of how by speaking from our heart, we can powerfully impact the lives of others in ways we may never even realize. I have a hard time even explaining how much Bruce Jaffe did for me. He took an interest in us that went way beyond the pool. And to prove it, he kicked me out of history class on a number of occasions junior year for being a knucklehead, which I was. For a while, Bruce thought my first name was Mr. and my last name was You Got Jug. Jug is a prep word for detention for those who don't know. As my classmates may remember, I was much more mature by the time we got to senior year. I only got kicked out of class a few times that year. But Bruce never let us settle for less than we were capable of. And like all great coaches, he saw things in us we probably didn't even see in ourselves. I want to acknowledge one of my heroes, my co-captain senior year, Peter Brawley, who was a phenomenal athlete, student, and person, and still is. He was a terrific swimmer who probably lost interest in swimming freshman year, if not sooner. But he honored his commitment to the team, and he won every tough race we needed him to win all 4 years. I learned from Pete that motivation comes and goes, but we can always rely on commitment. I learned about discipline and determination from Pete. He was also co-captain of our 10-0 football team our senior year as well. I want to thank Coach Ed Rowe, who chose me for the baseball team when I was a senior and taught me how to play the outfield. He also taught me a couple of other things I can't go into right now. We have clergy and women and children here. But I thoroughly enjoyed being part of that team and playing for Coach. We had a lot of fun, and we won a bunch of baseball games. Coach, I don't know where you are, but who loves you, baby? A few words about Bill Campbell, who's my coach at the University of Maryland. He became a second father to me, and he was a character and a great coach. He took a chance on me, and in those days it was much more difficult to access times and records. Believe it or not, there was no internet. I don't think he had any idea what to expect from me, so I benefited from low expectations when I got to Maryland. But he taught me how to be a successful college athlete. Swimming can be a grind, particularly at that level. Had I had a different kind of coach, I'm not sure I would have stuck it out. I'm very happy that I did. So thank you to everyone who's here tonight and to all those who couldn't be. I'm very grateful, honored, and humbled to be inducted into the Fairfield Prep Athletic Hall of Fame and to join with my fellow inductees, as well as those who came before us and those who will join us later. When we're lucky and blessed enough to stand in a place of honor like I am tonight, we have to realize that we're not up here alone. Thank you, and God bless you all, and may God bless Fairfield Prep.